This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Call to order the meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee for December 12th, 2024 at about 7:15 p.m. I don't see any members here as open time for the public, so we'll just kind of jump right into the agenda and take a look at the minutes from the last meeting. I've got them up on the screen too as well if you need them. So tonight we have Christina Manson, who's now going to be an at-large member going forward here, Alice, because Liz Grasty is going to be our historical commission person. So we've got a little change of peoples. We still have a vacancy at Conservation Commission. Paul Fergal will be here for the Planning Board. I'm here for Select Board. And Sarah Simmons is going to be absent tonight, but she's still Housing Authority. And Francine Tishman, as an at-large, is no longer on the commission. Her term expired in May. Hey, Paul. How are you?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
This kid's back. I just lost track of time.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. So good. We're just getting started.
Session?
Just getting started. Yes, we're just getting started. So just looking at the minutes for a brief. Just to introduce you to our new member. So Liz Grasty is representing the Historical Commission. Paul Fergal, Planning Board. So we were just taking a gander at the minutes here from the last time, and you weren't actually here last time, so you can have a breather and catch your thoughts for a minute or two. So anybody have any comments or thoughts? Christina, did you see anything else that was?
No.
It was more just a question about that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was. I didn't think that needed to be in.
Okay.
So I thought they were fine, and I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay. Motion on the floor to accept the minutes. Would somebody second it, please?
So moved.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Not hearing any negatives. Paul, you can abstain if you'd like to. Okay, one abstention. 4 yeas, no negatives, and 1 abstention. How's that? Okay. All righty. Good. Where'd that go now? All right. I'll get out of there. All right. So I think tonight I wanted to try and see what we could do to update anything that we knew about, and I'll just pull up the plan itself. So again, this was done, our update was done in 21, so here we are basically 4 years later, pretty much, and trying to see where things are. So we can sort of take it as a chapter heading in that order, but I wasn't planning on going through every strategy. I don't know if that's going to be, I can make this bigger here if that's easier to see. How's that? Better? Alrighty. So Sierra's not here tonight for housing. So let me see if I can run down and see if I know anything. And Paul, you might know something too on the 40R or cluster stuff here. Let me see. New mixed-use residential districts. Cluster bylaw. I am not sure. Do you have any sense on any of these, Paul? So let me just talk about one thing that might come in, I guess, would be accessory apartment. That bylaw, I think, did happen, did it not?
Well, there was a, I'm not sure if this has any bearing on what we're doing, but the governor's office issued an executive order on accessory apartments. I'm not sure if that's something we're all familiar with.
Okay, well, this is our bylaw. I'm just putting up our zoning.
I know, but there was something about by right, making it more of it by right. So I'm not sure if that's if the executive order is more of a temporary action.
Okay. Well, so this right now though was to be a separate unit complete with its own cooking, sleeping, sanitary facilities contained either within a structure or on the same parcel as a single-family dwelling, but a totally separate, not attached entity from what I'm reading this here. So these were the points of this, and this bylaw did pass a couple years ago, maybe. The main thing, let's see. Lot on which it's located must meet the minimum lot requirement, comply with other applicable zoning. Owner of the residence in which the accessory apartment is located shall occupy at least one of the dwelling units on the premises. So it has to be owner occupied in terms of the main
Would this
property.
be something like a mother-in-law apartment?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, just to say that we do actually have an accessory, what do they call it?
Accessory.
Accessory bylaw, accessory apartment. So this is in our zoning bylaws, which are on the town website.
The one thing that keeps coming up is the size of it.
The size?
It keeps getting wavered.
Okay,
The 600 square foot seems to be a,
okay,
Does
so
this also apply possibly to an Airbnb?
I think it's different.
no.
I think an Airbnb is different, if I'm not mistaken. Where's the size on this thing? Did I see this?
Oh, what do you mean by being wavered?
So most the applications we've seen that come to planning board, not most of them, but most of them, a good portion of them are greater than 600 square feet.
So the
size.
bylaw limits it to 600 feet and
Yes.
people are asking for waivers?
Yes.
Okay. And are they typically granted
Yes.
up to a certain point or as large, or just case by case?
It seems like the magic number is like 900. It seems like the industry has a size around 900, and I think that's potentially an outdated size that we have in our bylaw.
600 feet's small.
Very small. That's why people are asking for waivers.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. 600 feet, that does not.
I'm trying to even see that in the,
Yeah.
Doesn't,
That's, I've seen sheds bigger than that.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah.
apartments. I was trying to see where the size came in.
So that can be either attached or freestanding. One, it can be both of those things.
Yes, the way this looks on B here. So a separate unit, complete with its own, that is either substantially contained within the structure, but it's gotta have its own sleeping, cooking, sanitary facilities,
right.
yeah. Or on the same parcel as a single-family dwelling, but functions as a separate unit. I was just trying to find the size here.
I was in the beginning. I think you had it in the very
Did it? Was it up there?
front end of this section.
Doo-doo-doo. Common, no,
I think you're
we're too far in.
too
We're into
far
another
back.
one.
Go a little bit in front.
Right here, so,
Yeah, hold on, here you go. That's the start.
I don't see any signs right there though.
Keep going. I think I've seen that. Let's see.
State building code.
Was 600 square feet the minimum, Paul?
No, it's the maximum.
Max, okay.
Oh, there it
Right
is.
there.
Number 6. Phew. Okay, so the accessory apartment shall be clearly a subordinate part or an accessory to the accessory to the single-family dwelling, shall be no greater than 600 square feet, not have more than one bedroom. And then 2 off-street parking places per dwelling are available for use by the owner, occupant, and tenant.
So do the waivers include making more than one bedroom?
No.
Can they? So it's still,
I haven't
it's
seen any.
900 feet, still with a single bedroom?
It's been a while since we had one come through, so it's hard
Yeah.
for me to
Yeah.
Sure.
call.
Well, just
It's usually
wondering.
one bedroom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And would they, the next line was about the septic, would they have to do any adjustments to septic if they had
And I believe that it needs to be signed off by Board of Health.
Board of Health, yeah.
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 To make sure that there is the, whatever the
Yeah.
sewage system is, that it's
System is
piped
big
in
enough,
Exactly
correctly,
right?
sized, yeah.
if it was a separate structure and not part of the house or something itself, yeah.
So this is saying that we do have this
We
in
do. This-
Southampton.
this is an existing bylaw.
doable in Southampton.
When
Okay.
was it adopted?
Uh,
Recently, right?
Yeah, within the last 2 years, so probably, I can find a date for you, Alice, for the notes, but I'm thinking 23, 22 or 23.
Closer to 22, I think.
It took a while, it came to
Yeah.
it wasn't a special town meeting, it was an annual town meeting, I think.
It might have been the outside one at Labrie.
No,
No.
it was more recent than, it was,
No, it was more recent, that one?
yeah, it wasn't during COVID, it was after
Okay.
that, so. Anyway, I'll find a date for you, Alice, on that, but, so this is like, we jumped down, because I just found something that I recognized, so, strategy 2E, we actually have an accessory apartments bylaw, I don't know what, so this would have been recently amended, so it still might need further amending, but at least something got done on it.
Yeah,
At
and
point.
maybe it's a monitoring of what the industry, not the, I hate the term industry, but what's being done by other communities.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But then again, there's a waiver mechanism there, so it's been requested and it's been approved.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if I can talk just a little bit, maybe under goal 1. So I guess I'm thinking about our new property that we've just purchased on College Highway across from Dowd Insurance, Cumberland Farms area there. So that 54 acres basically, primarily for public safety complex senior center, but there's talk about having that also residential for some affordable housing. So that's another interesting use for that. And then that has some commercial zoning along the front of that along College Highway. So this could possibly be a mixture of commercial and residential. And so that's, I guess we could say that 1A is being worked on a little bit. I mean, we're at least getting our feet wet on looking at mixed-use residential district, because this would be a completely new area that's undeveloped, wide open field at this point in time. And to the extent for that, and I don't know if this is...
So that's, in the same update that included the accessory apartment, there has been an update to have more permissive uses in various zones.
Okay.
So that's been updated in our latest round.
Okay. So one of the things, though, that is being talked about is if there were affordable housing, the only way that's really going to work is to have a sewer system, probably,
Yeah.
in place. Whereas the public safety and senior center can probably exist and are planned to exist right now anyway on septic. When you wanted to put in, say, 20 units of affordable housing, you're going to need something more than that. So to that end, we've just finished a feasibility study done by Ty and Bond to look at putting in what they're calling a trunk sewer line from Coleman Road, where the current East Hampton bike path ends, parallel to our railway, which will be eventually the bike path, Greenway, parallel to it on down to this area on College Highway, and actually extending a little bit further up onto Pomeroy Meadow, Courtney, Rosalie, those couple of side housing, what do I want to say, cul-de-sac kind of areas across from the school, post office area. So it's including that, but then College Highway, Mountain View Circle, Lynn, Helen, it would include all of that. So the feasibility study has been done. We just received it and just reviewed it. The committee that was involved in that just this past week. Technically feasible. We would have to still have negotiations and an intermunicipal agreement with East Hampton to take our capacity for sewer, but they seem to have the interest and willingness to talk about that and look to be having the capacity for it. The timing would have to coincide with any construction we would finally do on the bike path, which is a couple years out still. But the idea would be to not run it underneath the bike path, not underneath the trails, the rail trail, but parallel to it. So once you're digging up all of that to put in the bike trail, you'd want this to time with it, which is another tricky thing. Because the biggest thing here is the cost that we were presented, which was about $20 million. So that's a huge
for the entire limit.
That would go from Coleman Road down to this Pomeroy Meadow Road area. Most of it along the rail trail, and then some, most of it, I think all of it actually, coming along the rail trail. They were talking about a pumping station down at Gun Road in Riverdale, and pretty much following the rail trail. But what it would mean is in certain areas would be, and I don't know enough about this, but certain housing areas in Helen Drive or Mountain View Circle, if they were to tap into this rather than continue with their septics that are quite old and whatever else, they would have a grinder pump, I guess it's called. So each house would, or any house, I don't know if it's each house, but a certain number of houses would have to have a grinder pump to take care of their effluent and then get it into the sewer. So the question that I had is like, why would I want to buy into this? What's my why would I want to pay for something else when my septic seems to be just fine? So anyway, just to say, we've had a first discussion, technically feasible, but would require massive community engagement and buy-in obviously from the community as well as money to fund it. But should that happen, that really does open the door for affordable housing up there, probably more so than not. But
there was a time when I believe it was said that negotiations had to take place with the railroad to make sure to get their permission to do that. Where does that stand? If I'm correct.
Yeah, I think it was more just an interpretation of how the right of way that we were granted, what it covered. It covers.
Has it determined that it does cover that?
I know it's between our lawyers and the railroad. I don't know that we've heard anything back from them yet.
So it may, depending on, it still hinges on the railroad.
Yeah, we've got the right of way. I think the right of way agreement wasn't clear about whether we had rights underneath the ground. So that's what we're trying to clarify. Yeah. Right,
but they could, if they decide that it doesn't. The right of way, well, if someone doesn't, it still hinges on that.
It
That's
does, yeah. If the railroad does not agree with it, then this goes out the window kind of thing, pretty much, yeah. I mean, it would be very hard to do anything if we didn't have the right of way approval from the railroad to do that, okay?
Yeah, and well, the only other thing that I would like to ask about that is this committee also, or is there someone considering water supply for affordable housing? Because 3 or 4 years ago, the chairperson for the Water Commission stood before Select Board and said that our well is at its limit.
Well, we have the Water Commissioner on the meeting group. That he wasn't there this last meeting, but he's on it. The Highway Superintendent's on it. So yeah, they'll be involved. I mean, definitely have to be involved.
Well, don't we already have an interconnection to East Hampton?
We do, from the well area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's only on lease, and it was, I have been told for, I would say at least 10 years, that it was a 20-year lease, and that's, we have to, you can't base new housing on such a finite lease.
Right. Yeah, so there's lots of details, but just to say that this whole area is kind of being looked at in terms of some future development, whether it's mixed use, affordable housing, whatever. So I don't know that we have to go through and just put strategy numbers by this, but we could just talk in generalities about what's kind of being looked at here. So increasing the awareness of housing needs and available housing resources. So again, tying into this, there is one property that the Housing Authority has already purchased, which is down across from the golf course, a little bit further down. It's on, I believe it's 354 College Highway, and that's about maybe 1.5 acres at the most. They've done the surveying, they've had a wetlands delineation. That would be the first place where there would actually be the first affordable housing unit built under our housing authority's kind of jurisdiction. Most likely, I think it might, at most it would be a duplex, I would think.
One duplex?
Huh?
Only one duplex?
Yeah, it's only an acre and a half thereabouts on the land.
Oh, and that's because of the sewer requirements? The septic, I mean?
I think, yeah, and probably the septic requirements, and then just the outlay of the lot itself, the structure, the shape of the lot and so forth there.
And where's that?
354 College Highway.
It's right
So-
across from the golf course.
Kind of across from the golf course, a little bit further up. And it's property that was purchased. So that is one where they're undergoing the various studies on that. What will happen is Housing Authority is not going to be the builder on this or manage this. They would actually work with the town accountant, our procurement officer, to put out an RFP for a developer who wants to be doing affordable housing to come and do that. The logical one is Habitat for Humanity, so they've been talking to them a lot. Habitat is very interested in helping do something, so that may come about, but they're trying to get all their specs lined up in terms of what they would need to put in an RFP to put it out on the street and try to ask for interested developers that would be wanting to do affordable housing.
What's RFP stand for?
Request for proposals.
Oh.
So that's in process a little bit. Under this 1,4D up here, use Community Preservation Act funds. So I think also a piece of that CPA money was used to buy this property that I'm just talking about, the 354 College Highway. Pretty sure there was a matching amount that must have come from CPC on that. I'd have to go back and look at town meeting on that, but this is all very convoluted here. But so what happens too is that in order for us to actually do affordable housing in town, we need an affordable housing trust, which is bigger and more inclusive and more regulatory than just a volunteer committee kind of thing, which is the housing authority. So we had also passed a bylaw in town to develop, to approve developing an affordable housing trust. That bylaw exists. It's been on the books for about a year and a half, and we've been having trouble finding people who would like to serve on it, because what we need is, again, it's volunteer, but we need people with finance, banking background, real estate background, interest in affordable housing in particular. As of last week, finally, I've interviewed 2 people who are very interested, and a third one is presumably interested. We need a 5-person committee, one of whom is select board, and then 4 people from the public that would manage this. It's got a whole long list of rules and regulations. I can send it around just for your information afterwards in terms of what the housing trust bylaw would be, but they would essentially manage properties. So they would be authorized to sell, invest, do whatever. What would happen for them to have any money to work with is that the housing portion or portion of the housing money at the Community Preservation Fund would be transferred into the account that the housing trust would manage. So right now, the CPA fund is, correct me if I'm right, 3% of every $1,000 of your taxes, I believe. So 3% goes into the Community Preservation Act fund, basically to fund open space and recreation, historical, and housing. Okay. We've oftentimes used the open space and recreation one. We've used some of the historical one. I don't think if we've touched the housing one, it's been very little. And so I think we've got probably $400,000 to $500,000 built up in that fund. It's just sort of been sitting, not being used. So the idea would be that a portion of that money, if not all of it, could be, and again, this would all be, I think, I'd have to check if it requires a town meeting vote, I don't remember. But monies from that CPA would actually go into this housing trust that would be managed so that, you know, if there were a property coming up, say like some of these smaller properties on Mountain View Circle or some of these others that are older homes in town, we never have been able to quickly turn around and buy something for affordable housing because it's gone within a second. You know, you can't act fast enough without the structure that we don't have in place until just recently. So this housing trust would be that engine to make those kind of transactions and do that kind of thing. So just to say we're starting to make progress. There's a bit of momentum going here, but it's heavy-duty fit.
Did
So-
these volunteers come forward after the Gazette article was published?
I think maybe a little
Or
bit,
as a result
a little bit,
of-
and then a couple people have just been reaching out and trying to convince people over time. And I know Jim Seeney, who had been on our master plan committee, who was formerly with the Housing Authority, he's been trying to talk to people still, even though he's not on the committee. And one of the people who came forward to meet with me is actually somebody who's pretty high up at Westfield Bank, for example. So we're looking for people that have got
Yeah.
solid financial credentials, because this is heavy duty. I mean, it's still a volunteer committee, but it's going to have a lot of responsibilities on it. So anyway, I will pass around that bylaw information just to show you what that looks like. But so I think we can kind of get off this, but I think it just seems that we are moving along in Chapter 1 housing. We're making some progress, I would say. All right? Okay, I'll shut up. Economic development. Let's see, looking at any of these here. The biannual agritourism day, I think we mentioned it in our meeting this last time too. I think we cited, Fletcher Farm offers, various opportunities. People come, at different times during the summer and the fall.
Oh, yeah.
They get a tour of, the barns and meet the cows and all that kind of stuff. So some of that does happen. May not be a formal thing.
At Bashistas too. They
But just,
have
yeah,
the-
but just, I
Yeah,
think
they've
they
been
do.
starting up. They
Yeah.
had like a concert there this.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
they've
so
had
I think
craft
there's-
fairs and
those
stuff.
are-
fair, yeah.
Kind of the things that are starting to happen a little bit, yep. Not sure about some of these other zoning and land use policies.
Is the winery?
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes, they do.
Sure.
But that would be considered agritourism
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And
They
they-
do all kinds of.
And they right now are moving in,
Yeah.
so the winery now, the vineyard area, two sides of the road, but one is gonna be under conservation restriction and the other one is under the ag preservation restriction. So this will be permanent agriculture that won't be developable land.
Didn't a lot of the CPA money go towards that?
Some of it might have matched the, either that or it was private funds, because Kestrel Land Trust has been involved in that. I forget, there's about 5 or 6 properties in town. They're part of this new Mountain Waters project. And some of them, we had to put up a match from town, and others, Kestrel was fundraising to get private donors. So like Fish and Game, Audubon, Nature Conservancy, whomever, were gonna be the private donors to help purchase some of the land. For some of these opportunities, yeah. So anyway, we're still trying to be a little bit agricultural here, but preserve our agricultural land. Streamlined, transparent permitting process. Town's website, stop for permitting documents. Permitting guidebook. Okay, I don't know about guidebooks, but so again, under goal 2. Progress, I think I'm going to say is being made. Right now, we're able to do an online, people can go online to our website if you want a building permit. So you can apply online for your building permit. However, once you've done that, it turns into paper. So the building commissioner walks it to Concom, to the planning board, to the health department, to the whatever. And so it's not the most efficient process. So there is software that's going to expand that building commissioner's portal, if you will, that will link the various departments that have to be a sign-off on a building permit or something else. So for example, if you've got a new building permit, the highway superintendent has to sign off on a curb cut. Concom would have to sign off if it was a possible wetlands area or not. We've had a problem, as you know, on East Street here, where right by the library, those trees were taken down, designated scenic road in town. We do not have a bylaw on scenic roads, hence no enforcement. That bylaw is being worked on now. So anyway, just to say that this software exists, we've investigated it, and the other night at Select Board, we approved funds to be used from our American Rescue Plan money that we still have a little bit of for the actual purchase and installation of this software. So that would mean that a piece of paper going in for, or somebody coming in for a building permit, all of those signatures would circulate automatically. The permit could not be issued until everybody's signature had been done. So I hope this would not only be more efficient, more friendly, maybe in a way, to the customer, our ultimate residents, that would want to use this, but I think it will be more efficient and avoid things falling through the cracks, which tends to be sometimes what happens right now between departments. So that's an improvement we're trying to make. And so we allocated funds from the American Rescue Plan. I believe it was about I think it was $31,000 for the software and $13,000 for the first year of operation. So $44,000 we've put aside to make this automated system.
And that will be an annual expense of 13.
The 13 would be an annual expense. Yeah, it's a one-time setup and software cost, but yeah. So a lot of this part of, create a one-stop shop, that's a little bit of what this is trying to do here. And, again, get people to use the town website that we've recently updated over the last year or two. So that's what this is all about. Okay, a little bit. So some of this, to invest in infrastructure. Again, I just talked a little bit about that. I got ahead of myself maybe on the water and sewer idea. The sewer in particular. The ad hoc tech committee is still investigating the idea of having municipal broadband in town. As you know, we've got our one main arrangement with Charter, which is our provider in town for those that decide to not cut the cord. But we have had meetings with both South Hadley Gas and Electric, I think it is Hoyok Gas and Electric / South Hadley, and then Whip City out of Westfield to talk about expanding broadband into Southampton and what that might look like. So there's a whole planning process that would have to be undertaken there, but that's a high priority for for the future.
There was a
MLP
survey.
Oh, yep.
That was
right from the master plan update time. We did a community survey, and broadband came up to be, I think it was like the number 2 top priority that people wanted, improvements in broadband. And there's parts of town, like the west part of town, is pretty tough in terms of access for anything, for broadband especially. So
do we have a municipal light board?
We don't have a board yet. We've passed again. It's passed through town meeting twice. So you have to go to 2 separate town meetings to approve a municipal light plant, which has been done. So we've had our 2 town votes. Now we have to create the municipal light board. We would not, unlike other towns, that expands into electricity. That's not our intent. Ours would only be fiber. It would only be broadband. So that hasn't happened yet, but that's a step to be done. And then working with some entity, I don't know who, because we've had meetings with, like I say, Hoyok Gas and Electric / South Hadley. It's called South Hadley Economic Development, maybe, I think it is. And then Whip City in Westfield. And Whip City's probably better known. They've already been expanding all their broadband right up to the town line, pretty much. And it would make some sense to just kind of continue on a little bit into Southampton, but we need a business plan and a business proposal, really, because each of these companies would tell us, well, we can do this, and it would cost the citizen, this much on your internet bill every month, but then you would, earn this amount by, selling it this way, and I mean, so it's like, it's way too complicated just to listen to those 2 companies that are self-interested. We'd want to have some independent entity do a business plan for us and say, okay, if we were to have our own internet and manage it, that means, what does it mean? I mean, that we could, we'd have to borrow money to put this in, obviously. So the idea for most towns, I think, is that you charge the customers a reasonable amount, and then part of the money that you get goes to pay the loan that you would have incurred from the town, at the town level. So it's not all that easy to manipulate right now, but yeah.
Are you familiar with what East Hampton?
East Hampton is doing something different where
they have a private entity.
They have a private entity managing the whole thing, right? They were going to go with South Hadley Gas and Electric, Hoyok Gas and Electric, and then they changed their mind at the last minute, because at one point we had Whip City coming south and the other one's coming north, and we thought, well, how do we choose? What do we do? And then East Hampton just changed their game plan altogether. So they don't actually own and manage any of it. They will not gain any revenue for it. So this would be, if we did it ourselves, managed it like some of the hill towns are doing, you end up gaining revenue for the town by managing your own broadband. But it, requires a municipal light board. So kind of like the housing trust, it requires a significant
Both
People that know what they're
require,
doing.
investment.
both avenues required a municipal light board, correct? What East Hampton has done, I think, also required, right? Or, I don't know.
I don't know if they do. I don't know if, I would think East Hampton probably does, because they were gonna go in that direction, and then they
Right.
changed gears, the mayor changed her mind in terms of how she wanted to see this structured, so it changed at the last minute.
Right, but they still have to, because the purpose of a light board is to, or the light plant is to force rights on utility poles, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
So
you've gotta
that's the
work with
mechanism.
Verizon and Eversource and everybody else to get another line put on the poles.
Right.
So one of the early things that has to be done is what they call a pole study, where somebody from these companies, I guess, would go around and look at every telephone pole in town, any of the broken ones, whatever, don't count. But they have to be tall enough, I guess. So many of them are probably on the shorter side, they're older. So a lot of the new poles that are being put in, when you see them being put in, they're much taller now. But it allows for more space on the pole to put in more wiring. And I've not heard about anything being underground. I think it's all aerial as far as I know.
Just the newer developments are underground.
Oh, the,
but-
okay. So.
But that's a totally different story.
Yeah, so, anyway, just to say there's, this is all sounding very convoluted, I'm sure, but there's a lot of stuff kind of happening around town, in a way, here, which we're trying to figure out what to do. So, zoning bylaws, subdivision regulations, I don't know too much about, Paul, do you? Subdivision.
So so there's been a significant amount of updates.
Let me just try if I can do something here. Subdivision. So let's see what happens. Subdivision lots. Let's just see what happens.
So there's been kind of a consolidation of power.
There we go. Subdivision regulations. Here we go. Whoops. Okay.
So the planning board has taken over a significant amount of authority that the zoning board has had.
That the zoning board of appeals had had. Yeah.
And that has been passed in the previous
Town meeting, I think.
town meeting, I believe, yes.
Right. Recent town meeting. Mm-hmm.
So there's been a significant update to that structure.
Mm-hmm. So the subdivision regulations bylaw, the main authority now will be more the planning board than the zoning board. And that's already passed town meeting. See if there's anything else in here.
But I think can you go back to your sheet, your
Yep.
document? Because I think subdivision is one part of that, right? Where is that?
Mm-hmm. Right here.
Yeah,
two-
so zoning
three.
bylaw and subdivision regulations.
Yeah.
So the problem that we were having before was that with the subdivision as well as zoning bylaws, there was
Uh-huh.
with going to ZBA and then going to planning board, and then depending on the application you had, the site plan approval, if it was
Yeah.
various type of special permits that needed to be granted, there was a lot of mixed procedures that needed to be done, and it wasn't with one entity. So there was a lot of conflict. So that's been reconciled in the last
Okay.
town meeting,
Okay. And the bulk of that now lays with
the planning board.
with planning board now. Okay. So that should simplify it both from a regulatory point of view, but also for the person, the developer that wants to come in and do anything. It should make their life a little bit easier too, to know where to go.
And the town's job easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And not, have to get tossed around between different departments. Okay. All right, let's move on to chapter 3, historic and cultural. Okay. What can you say there, Liz? Christina will help you out, I'm sure.
Two meetings. What has been discussed there is things like signage to notate roads that are of historical interest. And Barry was working on getting costs on those, and it sort of got in the weeds of how big the sign is and who's gonna trim the trees because the signs.
This
get
government
covered.
meeting is brought to
Yeah.
you by
Would this
Eastworks
be
and
on
our
the scenic
local
roads,
cable
or is that different?
subscribers.
Designated scenic road.
Designated scenic roads, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So that's one thing, for sure, yeah.
Um,
This must be one of the cultural resources in here. Let's see. Oh yeah, way down, it's under goal 3.4C. Enforce the protection status and regulations for officially designated scenic roads. So in addition to what Liz just said about some potential signage, we can say that the bylaw advisory committee is working on drafting a bylaw, which will be presented probably at the May annual town meeting. Because right now, there is no enforcement whatsoever. We've designated scenic roads at least as far back as the 70s, if not earlier.
74.
Yeah.
Is this just a bylaw on scenic roads?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so we've designated various scenic roads around town, Manhan Road, over on part of Gun Road, I think, and part of Russellville Road, and various places.
East Street,
East Street.
Rattle Hill,
Uh,
some of Cold Spring.
Some of Cold Spring, yeah. So there's been different town meetings where we've actually found the documentation. We know that that's happened, but there was no enforcement. There was no anything to follow it up in all this time. So it means that anybody can come in and just start doing
Cutting
whatever.
down trees.
And there's no fine. And even somebody, and I haven't had a chance to look at the state law on this, but somebody told me that there is hardly even any teeth in the state law. It's like, $50 a tree or something. It's like, well, who's gonna care? They're gonna pay it. I mean, that's nothing to a developer, right? So nobody pays any attention to that kind of stuff. So how true that is, I'm not totally sure, but we're gonna see if we can make whatever is on the books at the state level, make it strong for town as well. And try and make this, because we've had it recently with Eversource coming in, wanting to put in telephone poles and new wiring down on Manhan Road. We must have had the entire population of Manhan Road at a select board meeting a few times, trying to.
I wonder what will happen with East Street when they
Yeah.
do the.
When they're doing the roads, the widening of the road.
construction of the road.
Yep. So some of that, DOT knows that. They're going to have to take that into effect somehow or another. So that is one. But so just talking about, that scenic road and then the signage. So those are down in that goal 3.4, which is good. Up above that, let's see.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
A letter with a lot of documentation was circulated from the health department about property on Valley Road. It's the old Connecticut Valley Biological Supply
yeah.
Company,
Yep.
which is very close to where I live. And
Okay.
my
Yep.
very first job. But the house is used as storage for the Russian church down by Hampden Ponds.
Oh, okay.
This is what I gathered from the documentation.
Okay.
And the house is falling down. So it's an old house, so who weighs in whether it is a historic house that is worth putting any money into or any care?
Historical Commission.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
go out and,
Yes,
Yeah.
it would
Walk
be
the
your
property and take a look
responsibility
at it.
as a
Yeah.
commission to do that, and then you determine whether to place a demolition delay
Right.
on it, if a demolition delay permit is requested.
okay, so this is our job.
I mean, if a demolition permit delay, yeah.
Yeah, and that is another bylaw that's on the books. So a demolition permit. So, oopsie, just moved very fast.
Your demolition delay permit.
Is the right one? No. Down here. So it's got to be at least 100 years old or more, listed on the Cultural Resource Inventory System, Macros for Southampton. So there's a whole bylaw that follows what needs to be done. Okay. To the extent that helps. Yeah, I didn't realize that house was old, but I guess it must be.
It's been condemned.
Yeah. Wouldn't doubt
Where
it.
is it? Where is it? It's,
Valley Road. So when you're going down College Highway, you take a left on Valley Road right before the big red barn there.
yeah.
Yeah, you take a left there, and it's like 3 or 4 houses down on the left, right?
Oh,
Southampton Biological Supply.
It used to be their living quarters,
Yeah,
and then all the outbuildings
correct. Yeah.
were
yeah.
there.
So they used to furnish specimens to various high schools and whatever else for their scientific experiments.
That's where you got your fetal pigs and
In your frogs
cats
and
and
whatever
frogs.
else.
Ooh, frogs, yeah.
oh, wow.
Cats,
Yeah, so
I
it's-
don't know if you remember your biology.
It's got its
I
own.
don't know if I'd want to go in that
The
house.
Yeah, no.
smell is just going through my head.
Yeah, formaldehyde comes
Yeah,
to mind.
formaldehyde, exactly.
You're back at chemistry class with the goggles on, right?
Pretty much.
God.
Pretty much. So back on the signage for a minute too. There's another one on the signage is 32H. That is maybe that's the one you were talking about, Liz. Was provide signage on roads designated as scenic to educate town residents and visitors on the location of these ones. So that's the one that you guys are talking about already at historical. And there was another one down below there, but that's,
That was, that first was addressed when we were near the end of the year and wanting to spend, or knew we had money to spend
had some money to spend.
from the budget, from the
Okay.
annual budget.
all right.
And that is what the commission decided to
Okay.
use it on.
Okay, good, all right. Just while I'm right down in that area, so the Southampton Cultural Council, I do know the Cultural Council is active. They apply every year to the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and I know last year they got about, I would say around $6,800 thereabouts to then pass out to various community groups in and around Southampton. And the list of those is also on our website, so if you just go on the website and type in Cultural Council, you should hopefully, Cultural Council grants in that search button, you should maybe find them.
And Alice made note of that.
On the
in the
last
last-
time.
Yeah, I think it was, that's why I was going back to look,
Yeah.
yeah, 6,700 from the state.
Okay, 700, okay,
Substance.
there we go, yeah. Okay, good. I don't know about, anything else, Liz, on this, that you know of offhand?
Yeah,
Okay, and so Christina, maybe a little bit on the historic property of Old Town Hall? Talk about our grant?
Yes, even though that does not address future use.
No. Yet.
The grant committee applied for a grant through Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and the National Park Service to repoint the brickwork on the Old Town Hall building, and that grant was received.
Yep, it's been awarded, yep, $96,000.
$96,000 to both repoint the bricks where necessary and to remove the concrete ramp and stairs at the front.
What are they gonna do with that? They're gonna,
Well, it's not up to code and it is deteriorated. So at the moment, it's going to be brought back to its original state of the granite steps.
oh, nice.
And so hopefully someday in the future, we'll find someone who would love to invest in that building and make it back to what it used to be. Because, it would be a nice venue at some point in time, but we've got to get some mortar in the bricks there to keep it standing up first, so we were very lucky to be able to get that grant.
$96,000.
Mhm.
Wow. I mean, that's hard work. It's just
Yeah.
like-
Yeah, so, yeah.
so I've never been in that building.
Mm.
It's the police station down below.
Mhm.
It's the whole building, though.
They've taken over the whole building.
Yeah. But-
Well, yes,
yeah.
even the third floor.
Yeah, they have a little bit, yeah. But the addition back on the far right-hand side, far back side was what, 1960-ish, thereabouts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
70.
So, yeah,
1970.
so that's where the police station really is, but they use offices upstairs as well. But way back when, you can describe it.
Well, it was the original town hall, And there, on the front, there are, flanking the front doors were 2 offices, and then upstairs, 2 more offices. And the rest of the building was auditorium, a big, beautiful auditorium with a stage and balcony,
Oh, wow.
of which was the main, and it was the main activity venue in town. So town meetings, graduations, dances, plays, basketball, it was all
What was the
there.
capacity?
Oh, I don't remember. I mean, I don't know. I mean, our town was pretty small then.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, and then when it got redone, right, they put in the ceiling.
Yes, in the
So,
60s, they
Yeah.
divided the height of the auditorium.
So figure this is the auditorium, and you cut it in half, essentially, laterally here.
To make office space. And let's see, assessors, clerk, all of town hall offices then
Were there.
had their individual rooms there. And there was still a big meeting hall in the back.
Yeah.
And then upstairs was the Veterans Administration. And I remember going up there as, I don't know, Girl Scout or
Maybe,
something.
yeah.
Anyway, it was public, but now that is just, when the town hall moved over here, the then clerk took all the stuff that she didn't know what to do with and put it upstairs in that building, so the 3rd floor is now just a mess of paper
Paper stuff that needs to be
files and so
tossed
forth.
out, and it's way old stuff that needs to be disposed of. But so if you can envision the auditorium is literally just like you took and just boarded up, half of this right here, and up above there is still the 3rd floor now, which is still gorgeous woodwork and
I was gonna say, do they have like a really nice ceiling or something
Yeah,
in it?
gorgeous.
Yeah, all the wooden
Gorgeous.
truss. You can see the proscenium for the stage,
Yeah.
and it's a gorgeous
Turn it
structure.
into like a concert venue.
Exactly.
Yes, well, that's the
Yep.
ultimate goal.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep, and we need someone who has some contacts and deep pockets, but yes, that would be great. I mean, I think that would be a hopeful future use. We're not planning on tearing it down, so that's why we're spending time. Last year, we'd done some work on the windows and the woodwork that was rotting
Yeah,
and so forth, so
yeah,
trying to keep
yeah,
it
they worked
standing
on that a
up
while.
so that hopefully it could be used somewhere in the future, so.
So when is that repointing going to take place?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not till spring,
The-
Like
it-
next year?
Yes,
yeah,
Yeah.
spring.
Oh, that's good.
as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, Paul.
So, under whose authority is the building under?
Town.
No, I mean, is there a department? I mean, obviously the police department is,
Police department's the only one that's there now.
right, but who? So is it,
I know what you're saying.
who's, so for example, we don't have a facilities department per se that.
Correct.
So who manages it, I guess? I mean, obviously it's a town, but is there a department that's in charge of the building, or is that just?
Not really, certainly
like-
not on the exterior, I mean.
That would be you.
Well,
I mean, select board,
Select board.
Select board, I guess, yes, technically.
But, that is true, but I wonder whether given it's in a historic district and it is an historic building, whether the historical commission has some responsibility for it. I don't know either.
Don't know.
I guess where I'm ultimately going with this question is the upkeep and obviously there's been
Yeah,
activity to take care of the rotting wood, to
Right.
repoint the building. But, I mean, who's ultimately
yeah.
monitoring, I guess is the word I'm trying to
Mhm.
Is
find.
it the
In many
maintenance
ways, I mean,
department, like
huh?
the maintenance department in charge?
Yeah, no, I'm just, so who's ultimately monitoring?
I mean, in many ways, I would think it would be the historical commission because it's a designated historical building in town.
Right.
Well,
So-
and when I was on the commission, yes, that was what we kept pushing for, is to keep it maintained so that it was
Preserved.
continued to be an asset rather than a liability.
Correct.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
that's where I'm trying to go with,
Right.
ensure that there is continuity.
Right, yeah, good point, yeah. Because right now, I mean, with the police, I mean, we've got the custodian from here who goes over and works inside, but doesn't do anything on the outside whatsoever. I mean, he'll fix a few things maybe on the inside if he needed to, but, you know, there's not,
Well,
he's the
I-
closest thing we've got to a building facility person, but
And
he's
for
one
many-
person. Go ahead. And that's
For many
maintenance.
years,
Yeah.
it was deferred. The maintenance was
Right.
It was
deferred.
really deferred.
To the
Right.
point of becoming sort of critical to keep it as an asset, so.
Right. I guess my point being is just making, I wasn't
Mhm.
understanding who's ultimately monitoring the building's upkeep and
Mhm.
need for that preservation.
Yeah. I think it's really only been the last couple of years that we've even been thinking about it by going out and getting grants. So both of these, now one was not a grant,
The other, well,
The
the
other
first
piece
was
was-
ARPA.
ARPA money too, yeah, it was American Rescue Plan money to do the woodwork and the window.
I guess
work lesson.
what I'm
Yeah,
trying to build,
but that was
dancing
select board
around.
that- yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
from a concept of
Sure, sure.
even going after more or even
Yeah.
designating more,
Mhm.
identifying needs
Yep,
that might be missed, that
Yeah.
might have been missed,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there had been an envelope study done. Select board had hired an engineering firm a few years ago to do an envelope study to tell us where the problems were. And that's where the repointing was pointed out and you know, some of the rotten wood and some of the window issues and whatever had been pointed out. So we were using that as kind of a basis to say,
Gotcha,
okay,
okay.
there's umpteen million things to do to keep that exterior preserved, and where can we, it's a multi-phase thing, so I'd say we're in phase 2.
Yeah, phase 2, and it is ultimately, it's the select board
Yep.
who pursued the study with Hill Engineers,
Mm.
who authorized it. And, of course, select board authorized the ARPA funding
Mhm.
for the
Yeah.
maintenance. So the historical commission, I think, approached the select board and in tandem, the
Yeah,
project
kinda
got
joint.
going.
Mhm. Yeah,
What's an envelope study?
Exterior,
exterior.
the exterior
Oh, that's what you
structure.
mean. The outs-
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
Not the plumbing and the electric and all that inside.
Not so much, no.
Okay,
No, really the
envelope
structure of the
study.
building itself, yep. Okay, keep on going. Just the other thing on here, the points of interest map we started talking about at the beginning, I think we can just say that that is in the process, will be probably updated. We've talked about it before, but the Open Space Committee, now with some notes that we apparently have that we can get to them from Christina, from Mr. Hendricks, we can let them keep working on that and see how they want to improve that points of interest map from historical and kind of moving it up a little bit into current day as well. Probably that's a good share of what we got going on there, I think. Oh boy, open space and natural resources. Okay, we'll sort of speed through here, let's see. I don't know. So, the open space residential bylaw, I don't remember if there's a bylaw. I don't remember ever seeing a bylaw on open space, quite honestly. Open space has been very engaged in identifying parcels for preservation. So they've set up a whole bunch of criteria from just the nature of the land itself, what it's used for, the wildlife corridors, whether it's gosh, I'm forgetting all their criteria now that I say this. Oh boy. Well, anyway, I will
Core
find
habitat.
core habitat. There we go. Core habitat. All those kinds of things that ought to be preserved, or so they've been involved in trying to identify and reach out to various landowners, especially some of the elderly folks that have got lands and they don't know what to do with it. They're they either want to sell it or they want to put it in their will and maybe will it to the town or put it under some other kind of conservation restriction. And so over time they've been very active in acquiring properties in terms of reaching out to people who want to engage in that discussion. So most recently, this Mountain Waters project has been approved through Kestrel, and that's going to end up preserving, I believe it's another 700 or so acres of land in town. This is probably I don't know, I forget now, it's probably about 5 different landowners, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there, that was listed some too.
Was in our last one there, okay.
Yeah, we
So-
talked about that one, yeah.
Yeah, so that is still going on, and just to say as an update on that,
Yeah.
as an update on that, they will be, they've closed on one of the properties up on Fulmer Road, and they're gonna be closing this month, I think, on the Glendale Ridge Vineyard property. So, say there's maybe 5 properties that I'm thinking about in town, 5 or 6. 2 of them have already closed, and the rest of them need to be done by the end of June, because that's when the Kestrel folks got a partly private funding, but also a grant to make these land purchases and so forth happen. So there's a lot of work going on there. So there's going to be, I think Conservation Commission has often said that we've got 700 acres of conservation land and trails in town, multiple trails. This will pretty much double that, from what I gather, in terms of the amount of acreage that's involved here. But, so they've been extremely active. They started out as kind of an ad hoc committee and have been turned into a real standing committee and have been very serious and very active. So that's great to see.
Has the town been pursuing any green credits,
Green energy stuff?
green energy credits for preservation of outdoor space, green space? I know Holyoke, Westfield, and West Springfield have a pact that they've been getting on the order of magnitude $100,000 or so on a yearly basis for green energy credits.
From who?
From so I'm not sure how the mechanism has been set, but basically there's some bigger organizations, NGOs that have established, so for example, like an Amazon and other companies have created this green energy pact where people purchase green energy credits. One of the mechanisms to receive such funds is to designate areas that you're not going to be cutting down trees. And for Holyoke and for West Springfield and Westfield, that's a no-brainer for their reservoir areas.
Yeah.
That the cities in West Springfield, they just it was actually part of the agenda they had with the city council in Westfield 2-3 weeks ago, where they just the company that they were dealing with, they just needed to reestablish their terms and conditions because there was some new ownership or something of that sort. And to my surprise, I didn't realize there was such a mechanism, given that we have 700 acres of preservation land. This might be an opportunity for...
Yeah, if you could find out a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
I'm not, so it's partly carbon sequestration kinds of things, or?
Yes, but I'm not sure.
You know,
I'm not sure how it's
parts of that?
being
Yeah.
administered in terms of.
Yeah, who's in charge of it all?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's.
Because I know, I mean, not quite the same. We're a designated green community, but that just means we're trying to reduce our footprint in a sense we're involved in net metering credit, where we're involved in what does it call it? Well, I call it cow power. So it's a biogas establishment. We buy credits into that biogas situation in, it's not Granville, where is it? Hatfield maybe? I'm thinking it's Hatfield. And anyway, it offsets it offsets some of our electric bill for town hall. So we've done a little bit of that. We've just had total replacement of lights in the library here and at the police station, all with LED lights, and that's all part of the Green Communities grant that we were given several years ago. So we've done slight things on the green side, but I'm not sure it's anywhere near what you're talking about. So
I think that sounds very different from
I think so.
what Paul
Yeah,
was
so that would be good if you could
referring
find out a little bit more information. That would be wonderful to know about that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the agenda right now, this was a couple weeks ago, or the meeting minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll follow up.
Great, okay. And then just the last one on this, protecting water resources here, 45E. There is a group, I think it's largely planning board, or some members of the planning board are involved with Westfield, I think Springfield, some of the other communities around to try and reestablish, and Patty Gambarini of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, right? To reestablish the BayPAC, the Barnes
Great.
Aquifer Protection Committee. So that is being reestablished. It was ongoing for a while, and then it's I've died on the vine probably, 5 years ago or something, at least now, I'd say. And so that strategy 45E is actually starting to revive itself.
That's good to
And so
hear.
some of the members of the planning board are involved with that, with officials in Westfield and Springfield and a couple of other towns that share the aquifer, cities that share the aquifer. Okay. 6B, improve and maintain trail networks. I guess I'll just say that there is a volunteer trail group that's formed over the last year called the Trailblazers, and they are routinely conducting hikes and asking for volunteers to go out and help clear out invasives on several of our hiking areas around town, and they've been regular throughout the summer, scheduling time to go out and offering to take people on hikes around some of our conservation properties. So maintaining trail networks is something that they've kind of taken on a little bit parallel to the Conservation Commission, just for basically a manpower effort. I mean, there's, not enough people ever to do all that you need to do with some of these invasives like bittersweet and knotweed and a few other things. So this separate committee formed, and they've been doing pretty good at doing that over the summer. So hopefully they'll keep on going.
I think there's a sign at Clearwater asking for volunteers.
Oh, could be, yeah, could very well be. So, all right, let me just kind of keep on skipping here. Mobility, bicycle racks, well, we just got them up at the school, I think. I don't think we have too many others. That's something we ought to look at, probably. We have them up at Norris School, but I don't think we have any at the library, do we? Alice the biker?
I'm trying to think.
I don't think if we do it, there can't be more than a couple, because I can't visualize it if they're there. I don't think we have any here in town hall. So that's something that we ought to, I'm sure we could even get some grants for that kind of stuff. We ought to look into that, actually.
Especially when the rail trail comes through.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I think that should be built into to the rail trail project. That's a participating cost that should be paid by that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I think the rail trail is still in its design phase, but we've probably got one more year of finalizing the design. I think they're almost getting there, I guess.
Who's they? Who's doing the engineering?
Ty and Bond is on that. So they Ty and Bond are working on that. Can't find this one I'm looking for. So I'm thinking I'm forgetting the percent they're at right now, but they're pretty far along. It's been very slow because all the work they have to do has to be coordinated with the Mass Department of Transportation, and so sometimes that's where a lot of the slowdown is, and a lot of
Is that what they tell you?
bureaucracy is. Yeah.
I don't believe it.
I kind of believe it.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know. So that's.
I used to work there, so I'm shops.
So that's taken time, but we've been very lucky at getting Mass Trails grants to help fund that design cost. So we'll probably be putting in another grant request. I'm going to say it's due again in February, probably for the last tranche of the design work. And then once that design gets approved and we're ready to roll, there is money waiting for us in Boston on the what they call the Transportation Improvement Project or Program down in Boston. And way back when I first got on this committee, I think the amount allocated for construction of the Greenway, which again is that 3.5 mile strip from Coleman Road to Sheldon, I think it was around $6 million, if I'm not mistaken, and the last time we heard it was $16 million.
Ooh.
So they've upped it all over time now, just time has passed, here we are, 10, 15 years later, at least 20 years later. So there's still money waiting for us in Boston, but you've got to get through all this design stuff, so that would be somewhere coming, but.
So speaking of earlier, is the Carbon Credit Registry Program.
Hmm?
It's called the Carbon Credit Registry Program,
Okay.
is what I was mentioning
Is
earlier.
it mass.gov?
It doesn't say on the,
Carbon Credit Registry?
yeah, it's the Carbon Credit. Basically, the city of Holyoke, Westfield, and West Springfield have a municipal agreement
Okay.
through this program. I'm not sure how you get on this program, so I'm not sure that
Okay.
that's
Well,
something
we can
that we
look
can
Carbon
look into.
credit, what was it?
It's called Carbon Credit Registry Program.
And so Holyoke is one of the participating towns?
Holyoke, Westfield, and West Springfield.
We can reach out and surely find out.
Yeah, that would be great if there was more money.
That'd be nice. We can always do that. Okay, we'll do that. So I was looking for it, but I can't quite find it right now. But under 5.4a, one of the things that's interesting, we always talk about not having any public transport in town. So there's something that happened recently. I don't know, it's under John Velas it came on. That's where it came. Apparently, there's going to be a connection now with Pioneer Valley Transit Authority between Southampton, well, Westfield and Northampton. So going from the new bus terminal, the Oliver bus terminal or something, I think it is in Westfield, all the way to the Academy of Music in Northampton, which means Southampton may actually end up having 1 or 2 bus stops. So that's coming along in this coming year. We got some notification from Senator Velas's office about that. So again, a couple of things that I'm telling you, I'll just, if I can, I will find it afterwards, and I'll just forward it around just for information. It may help you with your notes too, Alice, sorry.
Yep, sure.
Okay, so we may actually have a little bit of public transport in Southampton in the coming year. That would be just amazing.
Yeah, just down Route 10.
Yeah, just on Route 10, I'm sure it would all just be that, yeah, so.
And is that through, that's Pioneer Valley PV?
PVTA, this is the bus line, so Pioneer Valley Transit Authority. But it's something through some funding from the governor's office that made it happen, apparently. Not quite sure how, why, but yep. All right, let me just pop down real quick if I see anything useful. See anything else? Most of that's happening. Public services. Done too much of this. We'll have to check. So under the Ty Carmody Dam issues here, I haven't totally been part of the group that's doing it, but there's been an update, or the process is ongoing for the update of our hazard mitigation plan in town. And the possibility of a dam burst or something was one of the hazards that had been identified at one point in time. Not a high priority, and I think they had somebody from Ty Carmody come and talk to the group that's working on it here in town, the update of the plan, again with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission assistance, and they said that there was really no risk there, that it would only be a risk if we had a major earthquake. So they didn't think there was a big risk for the dam ever bursting or causing us flooding or problems. So
Now, where is this one? Where's the Ty Carmody Reservoir Dam?
who would like to explain that?
It's right there. So it's right above Chris's head.
There you go.
There you go.
So Time Bond actually did a study about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. So west part of town,
It's
basically.
right there.
Yep.
And that's where that transmission line to Holyoke goes from that
Right.
section.
And so that actually is on town property, but it serves the city of Holyoke. So the water from it goes to Holyoke. We don't, to my knowledge.
But we have rights to it.
Do we? Okay.
Yes, we do. I forget.
That's
what-
We can't go there. We can't walk there anymore. Can't
No,
be
we
there.
can't walk there, but there has to be.
we have water
a-
rights.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, the
Okay.
water rights, so that's raw water. That
It's not
leaves.
treated water?
It's not
Yeah.
treated water. There was actually some, and I think there would have been a study done like 10, 15 years ago
Okay.
about the feasibility of tapping into that transmission line. It would be a very costly activity for the town to try to connect to that
Mhm.
raw water, particularly getting it treated and distributed back into the system.
And would we have to have our own treatment plant, no?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, that's the real
Yes,
cost.
that's the cost.
That's the killer right there,
But,
right?
but then
Yeah.
we have, there's a great deal of water volume available to us if we
Absolutely.
yeah. So that is indeed another source, and actually I was chatting with the forester who has done the management plan for all of that watershed.
Mm.
There's an awful lot of cutting that's been done up there this year. Just ran into her walking, and she said, excuse me, she didn't understand why Southampton didn't do it. All it would involve is tapping into, or creating a treatment plant.
Oh, yeah, sure, along with our other million and millions over here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the city of Holyoke might be getting carbon credits for Thai-carbon, because that was part of that.
Yes,
in-
yeah, that's what I wonder.
So that's what
Oh, that's interesting.
But it's on our land.
It's on our land, yeah.
I don't know if that's the fact, but I know that that's
Interesting, well, something to think about.
actually, that makes sense, because Westfield was talking about their agreement with Montgomery, is it that they have
Probably,
their reservoir system connecting to, and they had a similar,
Hmm.
they're making, yeah,
It
interesting,
looks
yeah.
huge on the map.
oh, it is.
It is quite large, yeah, yep. The White Reservoir no longer exists, correct?
It never functioned for more than less than a year, I think, as a reservoir.
And that's up off of Foamer, am I right?
It's in West Hampton.
It's on the West Hampton side?
Yeah,
New intake dam, I don't think I even know that one.
I don't know that one either.
Don't know that, okay, so. Searle Pond, Alder Pond, that's Barry Searle, and he's in charge of maintaining that, and that seems to be, as far as I know, doing okay. There doesn't seem to be any issue there, but maybe getting a copy of the emergency response dam exercise, that might be something we could do, or the emergency action plan. We probably could do that as part of the hazard mitigation plan update. You know, I bet we could get a copy of that if we don't have it.
So Alder Pond is listed as a potential,
Well, it's just to ensure public safety, to be sure that they're being maintained mostly.
so that actually has a dam on it. That's a man-made
Mhm.
pond.
Yeah.
So I think,
Beaver dam on it. I mean, I don't know what else it's got on it, but I'm not sure.
so given that Holyoke is in charge of the maintenance, I think they're in charge of the EAP
Probably,
for
yeah.
Thai Carbon, so if we
Yeah.
want to get those copies, and I think there's regulations that they need to keep up with from the state dam safety division
Right,
through DCR,
yeah.
that they have to have certain updates prepared
Uh-huh.
on a regular basis, so that's something that I think Holyoke Water Works is responsible for on their dime.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
not necessarily something that we have to pay for.
Right, okay. Well, and I think on our end, I'm pretty sure it's the police department that's been pretty much involved there, so they would be the logical one to maybe reach out and ask for that. And he's part of the chief is part of the,
EAP.
yeah,
Yes.
he's part of the hazard mitigation plan update. So we could reach out and make that known. This is not an area that we spent a lot of time on, frankly. That's about that.
What's
Okay.
EAP stand?
Emergency Action Plan. Emergency Action Plan.
And in the past, library's been working at doing more digitizing of their collection and historical collection in particular. They've got a very good historical section on their website now. School officials, they get a lot of their grants through the Department of Secondary elementary and secondary education, so we haven't really been involved with that very much. We already do have the light plant authority. We have not established the light board, the municipal light board, which is what I was talking about for our fiber. And again, we wouldn't do gas, electric stuff. It would just be fiber. So.
I'd like to just go back to
Yep.
the digitizing of historical documents.
Uh-huh.
I think I'm remembering this correctly. I know that in the past, CPA has funded some of that. The library has requested funds in the amount of $6,000 per time. You know, each
Okay.
time they've requested that. And then I think it was determined last time they made the request that CPN, they were not eligible for CPA funds.
Oh,
So I don't know where that stands at this point.
okay.
I think I've got that right.
Okay. Well, I will probably run into the library director from time to time, and if I remember that, I will ask about that.
Do you know if she lives in Southampton?
I don't believe she does.
She doesn't, I remember running into her at a vote one time and she said she couldn't vote.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. All right, let's see what else we got here. Energy, okay, so wind energy bylaw. Do we have a wind energy bylaw? Don't think so. We do have a solar something, do we not?
We do. That's being revisited as well.
And is that more citing, so solar electric generating facilities? Ew, goodness, so what's
So we're looking to revisit it to update the regulations for the different size residential versus large-scale, mid-scale size of facilities, because there's some regulations that we have that are quite demanding on the smaller scale that we need to revisit and be
so this would be
more
different
manageable.
from your few panels on your roof or your freestanding panel out back? You're
Across
talking about
the
like
board.
a big solar array thing? Or?
No, I'm talking about across the board.
Oh, okay.
So from on the roof by right to a freestanding pedestal on someone's backyard
Mhm.
to a full field of
Mhm.
arrays.
Like on the way to Westfield?
Correct.
So we're looking to do an update to those regulations
Correct.
on the bylaws.
Okay. So modification of the bylaws?
Residential and commercial then? Like it would be
Across the
too?
board, yes, yes, yeah. Residential, yeah, whatever terms we use, residential by right and by special permit.
And why is that? Are they too big or is there too many or just?
No, the requirements, regulations that we put on the smaller developments seem a bit tedious and demanding, so we're trying to water it down a little bit.
So it's maybe a bit of right sizing in terms of
Correct.
the regulations vis-a-vis the recipient kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a little, it can be a little demanding on the residential side for freestanding
Mhm.
pedestals.
One of the things we had looked at one point was changing out our streetlights to go to LED. I think Eversource does that when the streetlights kind of blow out. When they're out, they would get replaced with LED, but we would not do a whole scale, go replace everything around town. So I think that was how that was left, that, you know, if there's a streetlight that gets burned out, Eversource replaces them probably with LEDs now. But that's about all I know about that. We had looked at trying, it's been talk over time since I've been around, about trying to make use of the land right behind the fire station, about maybe putting a big solar field of some sort there, if that's the right term for it, solar field, whatever. many solar panels.
Is that where it's parking now?
Yeah, right up on the hill, on the grass side behind the fire station. It's land that we bought, you can't really use it, it's a lot of ledge, you can't really construct much of anything there.
I walk my dog.
Yeah, there you go. And so we'd been trying to reach out to see if there were any entity that would help us do that. And we reached out to Eversource fairly recently, and apparently they're not doing anything on municipal solar from an Eversource point of view, which is kind of interesting. But there's a lot of grant money out there and so forth for solar, and EV charging stations and all that kind of stuff. Bless you. But we haven't made any progress on that, but there's an interest there to still do that, because one of the huge costs we have, not only for town hall, but probably the other buildings too, but especially town hall, I mean, our utility costs are pretty high, and anything that we could do to offset that somehow would be nice. But we haven't made much progress on that, but it's still kind of being looked at. And just to say that as we design new buildings in town, so like the public safety complex or the senior center, most everything now has got to be solar ready, if I'm not mistaken. So we don't have to install like solar on the roof or whatever, but you've got to have it ready to be installed such that someday you would. And I think EV charging stations, there has to be a certain number of EV charging stations with new facilities. So eventually we may get into that that domain where we're putting our toe in it, but we haven't gotten very far on it right now. So just to say that some sort of solar voltaic something may happen, and one of the sites would be logical to be there. It may not be the only one, because we've got a couple of other town-owned properties where that might be appropriate too. But
does the grade make it more challenging?
It might, yeah. And that's why we were hoping that somebody from Eversource that kind of does this work, but I guess they're just not doing it. So we've got to search elsewhere. That somebody would come out and do a site visit and tell us, well, that's possible, or no, you can't possibly think about doing that. But we don't have anybody that we have found that knows enough to come help us, so somehow. And it's not just like your typical, Trinity Solar or Valley Solar. It's, we were looking at a municipality one rather than a more residential kind of thing. So anyway, okay, last one, we'll finish up here. Land use, pedestrian connections. I think we talked about it last time. We're still working on that. The grant is out there, 83C, with Mass DOT, Department of Transportation. We're going to be widening, Liz, for your information, at the corner of Route 10 and Pomeroy Meadow Road, going toward Norris School, and actually going as far as Gun Road Extension. On the right-hand side by the post office, there's this little path that's about maybe 4 feet wide, and there's telephone poles in the middle of it, and you can't really bike there, you can't walk there with 2 people kind of on the same width of the sidewalk. So basically, we had applied again for a grant, and DOT, through the Safe Routes to Schools program, has approved that to be a widened path, to be more promoting walkability and bikeability of kids going to Norris. And so that path would go from, I think, 4 feet to 10 feet. And that is in the design phase down at Boston DOT, or up in Northampton, wherever they are. So that's something that will be happening within the 5 years. It's a 5-year thing that they had given us as to when they were going to do that.
Okay.
So from the corner, you've got the wide sidewalk right now coming from Paisanos right down to that corner of Pomeroy Meadow. It would be kind of continuing that straight on up as far as Gun Road Extension. So that's in the works, planning. We're also looking, believe it or not, Paul, we're actually going to be looking, I think, in this budget cycle to try and figure out a way to hire a planning person on staff, at least part-time. I think the number of things we've got going on around town, we really need somebody to buttress, the planning board, which is all volunteer. And luckily you guys do have a paid consultant that you've got, but that's not quite the same thing as having somebody that could be, really thinking about land use planning in town. So we're seriously probably going to consider that as a part-time position, at least if we can do that in our budget cycle coming up in February. I think the assessors have done very good. They've gotten better software. They're doing great at managing to track various improvements on people's properties and get the right assessment going there. So I think all of that is working pretty well. So I guess that's about it that I can think of right now, which is more than enough. Anyway, just to say, I think this kind of gives us some hope that, you know, the master plan is not just sitting on a shelf somewhere, but I think we are trying to do some things. We may not be regularly consulting the master plan chapters, but I think things are, you know, kind of in our minds, and things are happening in the background without really looking at page 42 to see if it's there. But, you know, that's the purpose, I think, of this, to be able to say, hey, look, this is what we're thinking about, this is what's going on, and reporting that out, so we can at least know that it's not just a document collecting dust somewhere.
Well, there is progress in each of the chapters.
I think
It's
so. I
great
think we are.
Great
Where's
to
all
see.
this located online? What are you pulling up?
Sure. Let me go back here. It would be the townofsouthampton.org, all one word. And that's our town website. So you go into your browser. I'll get rid of this right here. I'll get rid of that. Hold on. So let me just put it in here. So townofsouthampton.org.
Mhm.
Okay, that gets you right to our town website. So under each of these, you've got different things. So some of the businesses are listed in here, some of the historic sites. I don't know what, let's look at that one. So we've got a couple photos in here, a couple things here. Not a lot, but a little bit.
Does anyone mind if I run off?
No, go ahead.
It's a bit- I gotta
Thank you.
go. Thank you.
We'll be adjourning in a minute. There's some things here from Concom, so that some of the trails are in here, some of the maps that exist. They need to be updated, I think. Not too many of them have probably been updated in a while, but many of them do have actual trail maps,
Hiking trails, yeah.
hiking trails online. So that's under there. So this is kind of under that explore category. Just look around. Get Connected is where the calendar is for all of our various meetings in town. If you wanted to volunteer, this is where you find your volunteer form. Watch meetings, so this gets you into the all of the meetings that are recorded. So primarily select board, planning board, school committee, and many others like we are tonight get recorded, and East Hampton Media transposes them and puts them up on our website so anybody can watch them. So we've got lots of stuff up here. Whoops, I just closed that. I hit the wrong button. Silly person.
And the master plan is,
Yep, so let me find that. Let me put up here. So if you just, easiest thing to do is probably, well, actually I can probably just, it's probably under plans, reports and plans, I'm gonna say. So under government, so this is all the boards and committees. So Historical Commission would be here, for example. Parks Commission would be here. All the boards and committees and commissions are there. And you just click on those, and then under reports and plans, I'm gonna hope that that's there. Yes. So right over here, you're gonna find the open space and recreation plan, all these MVP plans, and then this was our update right here. If you go back to the first page, one hopes, and there was an annex. So these were all the kind of immediate, short-term goals and objectives.
mhm.
And then, don't let me close out of that again. And then right below it was the annex in 2001. Then these are the medium to longer term goals. So these are ones that, and actually some of those have actually jumped forward and have become, have actually been done in the short term.
Who updates that online?
A couple of us. So right now, myself and the town administrator have got privileges throughout, but every department, so like Parks Commission is responsible for its own, Historical Commission is responsible for its own, Concom, everybody. So what we had before was one where everything was so centralized that nothing happened and the website was just not useful, to say the least. So now some of the main background features we end up managing, but every department manages their own updates in terms of what's going on in their areas. We've got a staff directory here, so here's the people that work at town hall, all that kind of stuff.
Some of this I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So yeah, so just go to townofsouthampton.org and just play around, and you'll see a few things. And we're going to have a new page very soon called Special Projects, and that's going to have the land use planning for that area on College Highway that I just talked about across from Dowd and Cumberland Farms. And it's going to have the railway sewer study that I just talked about. And it's going to have the 250th anniversary events and planning on there. So there'll be a special projects page. It's almost ready to post. So we're getting some things going on. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you.
Good, all right. Well, guys, thank you so much. This ended up being as long as I was afraid it might, but we haven't met since May, so I guess
Yeah.
we can't be too picky. we'll have to suffer a couple times a year rather than every 2 weeks, right? Or every month. So I'll take a motion to adjourn if everybody would like to do so.
So moved.
All right, could I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, we're adjourned at 8:50.